I bought a new car, the 2018 Ford Focus RS, and today we're going to review it. Let's roll! Now this technically is my second Ford Focus RS, and specifically my second 2018 limited edition Ford Focus RS. And for the ones that are wondering, what is a limited edition Ford Focus RS? Well, see, after they announced the arrival to North America for the Focus RS for the first time ever, which I was super excited, Ford decided to sort of end production by making 1,500 units for Canada and the US. 500 for Canada. I believe we're 250 in blue, nitrous blue in this one, and then 250 in red. Meanwhile, in the US, they only made 1,000. Of course, bigger market. So when that opportunity came, I thought I wanted to own a Ford Focus RS. So I bought one back in 2018, a 2018 model, brand new. I owned it for about a year, and during that 1 year I almost never drove the car as I wanted to because I was working, creating content on YouTube at the same time, so it wasn't the best experience or the experience that I wanted with the Ford Focus RS. Due to certain circumstances, I had to sell the vehicle, but in some ways my desire to own this car back never went away. So 2 years ago, I started looking for one. And during COVID, these things were so freaking expensive that it didn't make any sense. But thankfully, after COVID, things, well, cooled down like everything else, including new cars. So I came across this specific unit, and my goal was to find one that had low kilometers, was never tuned, never in an accident, and it was well maintained, and hopefully with some warranty. And guess what? This had everything I wanted. So back in December of 2024, I saw the listing for this vehicle on a Ford's website, a dealership located not far from Toronto. And they had this listed with 28,000 kilometers, which at that time I thought was a bit weird and very little kilometers for a car from 2018. And that was the lowest I had seen for a 2018 limited edition model. I'd seen 50,000 kilometers, 80,000, up to 150,000 kilometers. But this one had the lowest kilometers. It was listed for $44,000 Canadian. Now, to some people, that might be a lot of money for a car from 2018. To me, it's worth every penny. And it was a good value because some of these vehicles were selling during COVID for like 60 grand with like 80,000 kilometers. So that to me seemed like a great price. What's even more important is I was able to purchase Ford warranty. So I have warranty on this vehicle till 2026 or 60,000 kilometers. Currently, as we speak, this vehicle has 31,000 kilometers. So I only put about 3,000 kilometers since I bought it back in January. Well, the truth is, I drove essentially all the hatchbacks available currently, the ones that would compete with this vehicle. And I was hoping two of those would be sort of my next purchase. One, the GR Corolla. And after driving it, the automatic and a manual, I found that car to be underpowered, overpriced, too small on the inside, not that fast. It doesn't sound as good as this beauty, and a little bit too expensive for what it is. It's also a 3-cylinder. What we have in here, and I will say this not because it's my car, it's probably one of the best hatchbacks ever made. Simply put, maybe the best ever in my books. And that's one reason I bought it. Why? This thing makes a ton of horsepower for a small 4-cylinder 2.3 liter engine. And having a limited edition vehicle like this, it's probably going to hold value down the road. Now, what is a limited edition Ford Focus RS? Well, the first thing is that they have tweaked the suspension system to make it better because the 2016 and 2017 were unbearable to drive. This one, it's got a little bit of better ride. Not the best, but it's still a lot better than the 2016 and 2017 that I've driven. The next thing is that this offers limited slip differential in the front. It has black mirrors, black roof, and black spoiler in the back. So that's one way to tell that. Then on the inside, this has carbon fiber pieces, door pieces, for example, have carbon fiber. Then you've got the actual centerpiece. Then you have the boost gauges at the top that have carbon fiber. So those are some of the things that Ford included with the 2018 limited edition model. And the red color that was offered for the 2018, something that wasn't offered for 2016 and 2017. Now, one of the reasons that I bought the nitrous blue is because I absolutely adore this color. This car makes me happy. Every time I look at it, doesn't matter which way, which side profile or rear, I absolutely love this. And I actually wanted the limited edition, not because it's limited edition, it's because I love the black roof and the spoiler at the back, and happened to be the perfect match for exactly what I wanted. You're probably wondering, wait a second, you've had this car since January. Yes, it's been almost 4 months now. We're in May, and I've got to enjoy this thing a little bit during winter time. But the problem is that I don't really like this car with the 18-inch wheels. And we did some of the rollers with the 18-inch wheels, and it doesn't look as good as the 19s that you see in here. In fact, this is exactly how I want this car to look. Nothing else added. There's no aftermarket wheels that I want to put on. The original RS wheels are perfect. The other thing is that we've had a very horrible winter this year compared to previous years. This has been pretty long, and it was pretty hard to get this thing out with summer tires. The next thing is the fact that I've been working on this app, which is called Carsnap. And Carsnap is an artificial intelligence app that you can use to buy your next vehicle. All you have to do is take a picture of any car that you like. It will tell you what model it is, tell you the year, and it will tell you YouTube reviews, all the listings around your area, and the specs. So everything you need to know, it's right there, all in one app. We also updated the latest user interface, which shows up straight after you open the app into the camera, so you can take a quick picture of any car that you like. You don't know what car it is, bang on. That's all you have to do. And it's available on iOS and Android. So download it, it's for free. Now, there are some hatchbacks out there that I have considered over the RS. Well, not really considered over the RS, but say that get close to this. And one of those is the Integra Type S, which I really liked the first time driving it, and I actually thought about buying it. But then in the back of my mind, I always had this idea that I wanted to own the Focus RS one more time. Potentially this might not leave my fleet ever. I also have a second car that I bought after the Focus RS. I won't reveal anything, but just don't forget to subscribe, because we did a full project, a build project. It's a daily, and I've been wanting that car as well. So currently I have two cars, the RS and the second one. But the Integra Type S was my choice as well. The problem is that during the time that the Integra Type S came out, well, dealerships sold out across the province, and they also wanted a lot of money, because during COVID, as you guys know, these guys were asking crazy amount of money over MSRP for these vehicles, and I'm not willing to do that, hence why I waited. But when this thing showed up with the amount of kilometers, the conditions, I couldn't say no. And in fact, I went to see this December 31st, where most people are at home celebrating. I went and saw this in person, and the 1st of this January of 2025, I actually put the deposit down and I said, I want this done. So here we are, we have it here. Now, one of the things that I do love about this car is the exhaust sound. Unlike other hatchbacks, Golf R, GR Corolla, even the Integra Type S, these things sound the best. Whether it's under load, sport mode, track mode, doesn't matter. This has the best sound. Take a listen. It's no V8, but let's be honest, for a 4-cylinder, that's pretty good. Of course, you can make it louder. I love it just the way it is. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is how this thing looks. You see, the closest one that looks just as good would be the Integra Type S. Maybe the Civic Type R, but the rest of them, the Golf R looks like a GTI at the front. The GR Corolla, the rear end, it's not really my favorite. It's too wide, not good. Maybe I'll say the Elantra N is another choice, but that's front-wheel drive, so I'm not really the biggest fan of front-wheel drive, but that is a great vehicle and it's a lot cheaper. This, on the other hand, has the perfect profile. I love the wing. I love the side profile, the rear end, the diffuser, the exhaust, the mirrors, the front end. Huge fan. Everything. 19-inch wheels, the blue calipers. That's another reason I didn't get the red one, because the red one came with blue calipers but red paint. Didn't make any sense how Ford did that. But this, perfect match. Even the front end of this thing is one of my favorite profiles of this car. The headlights, the grille, nothing has been overly done on this car. They've done exactly what you want from a Focus RS. A hatchback that looks fast, that looks good. This is probably the only car that I've owned where every time I park this thing, I turn my head. And someone said to me the other days that that's when you know you got the right car. And this is probably the only one, even the F80 M3, it's the only one that I've owned that I turn my head every single time. Now, when the RS came out, it had amazing reviews, and rightly so. This thing was a very powerful hatchback that at that time made more horsepower than the rest of the hatchbacks. In fact, it still makes more horsepower than all the hatchbacks out there available, which within the same price range, unless you're looking at a GLA 45. But if you had to compare it to like the Golf R, Civic Type R, Integra Type S, GR Corolla, this thing uses a 2.3 liter 4-cylinder turbocharged Cosworth engineers as well. It was essentially a team between the Cosworth team and the Ford team that developed this engine. And this one makes 350 brake horsepower and 350 torque. Now, first thing that people will tell you when this engine comes up is the head gasket, and it is true. They really messed up, because in some ways this is similar to the 2.3 liter EcoBoost used in the Mustang. So they use the same head gasket in this, which kind of proves the point that the engines are not the same. Displacement might be the same, but they're not built the same, hence why they had that recall. The good news is the 2018 model did not have that issue, because by 2017 Ford had already fixed the head gaskets and most of them had been replaced. So the new vehicle, when it came out, well, it didn't have that issue. Therefore, this car did not get affected, hence why I kind of want it as well. But Ford did own up to it, and they replaced all of them with new head gaskets. The next thing to know is that this car, it's an all-wheel drive with a 6-speed manual transmission. It has a drift mode, which sends about 80 to 90% of the power to the rear wheels. Now, imagine that back in 2016, something like that. It wasn't available in any other vehicle for that price range, and even to this day. The Golf R has come out with it, but this came out back in 2018. And this engine has been proven to make a lot of horsepower. In fact, it's also been proven to be super reliable, because during the time that I searched for this vehicle, I came across cars that had 200,000 kilometers, and they were in very good condition for the amount of kilometers. So people out there complaining that this car is not reliable, it's far from the truth. In fact, this was built in Germany, was not built in North America. So the quality, the build quality in general, it is pretty good for the price. Not the best, but in my opinion, after looking at some of these vehicles with over 150,000 kilometers, I was impressed. Now, another thing that people will talk about the RS is the fact that it did poorly in sales, and that's far from the truth. See, the reason why Ford discontinued the Focus RS wasn't because poor sales, it was because the emission laws. See, this was sold in Europe, therefore, when you're making a car from North America and Europe at the same time, you have to make a car that can abide by both laws. And the Europeans have different laws when it comes to emission, actually stricter than North America. Therefore, to make a car like this, which I think Ford will never be able to make with the same engine again, it's very expensive. So that cost of actually making the vehicle and then paying all those fines from the government would make this thing very expensive. Therefore, most people will not be able to afford it. Hence why Ford actually canceled the Ford Focus RS. And that's why they haven't made another one, because for them to develop a new engine, it has to be fuel efficient, it has to meet those emission laws, and it has to be more powerful than this. And that is very expensive to develop for just one model. That's a huge deal. Now, the 2.3 liter came off the Mustang, but it was sort of fully re-engineered for the Focus RS. hence why they offered in here, and hence why the gasket didn't work for the Focus RS. But looking forward, will Ford make something better than this? Potentially. It all has to do if they can team up with a different company to be able to make that engine and then use it across some platforms, so that way they can stretch the cost with the other models, because using this just in one model will not make any sense, which in some ways is going to make this thing, well, down the road, a pretty good vehicle to have in terms of value. Now, I didn't buy this car thinking that it's going to be one of those vehicles that is going to sell for a lot of money. In fact, I don't really care much about in terms of resale value, but I do believe that being a limited edition and seeing the markets from the time that I bought it till now, and even during COVID, I do think this car is going to hold value pretty well, because it is going to be very limited. There's a lot of cars out there that have been driven winter, summertime, and they've got a lot of kilometers. Some people actually still drive them day to day, which I find them pretty brave, taking consideration the ride of this car. I don't mind it personally, but I've heard people complaining a bit. So having said that, I do think that the car itself might be a collectible vehicle down the road. Maybe, I could be wrong. I think the limited edition might, but I don't care. But the value itself, compared to when I bought mine new to this, it's not that far. I paid $47.5 with insurance, with a warranty. New, I paid about $54,000 because it was the limited edition. Now, back then, it was a bit of money, but now a Civic Type R will cost you about 60, 70 grand in Canada. So in the US would be, of course, a little bit less, but I've seen Civic Type R, the new model, going for like 70 grand, which is absolutely insane to think about first. But then you've got the GR Corolla, which also about 56,000, underpowered, small, etc. Then you've got the Golf R, which is also expensive as well. The cheapest one that I could think of, it would be the Elantra N, which is a great value for the money. I don't really care about the resale value down the road. I bought it because I love it. I love driving it. Now, when it comes to the interior of this thing is where I can point some things that I don't like. The first thing is that the seats on the passenger side does not get power seat, or you can't even lower it. So that is the level that you get this seat. And my wife doesn't appreciate that. I don't carry many passengers, so I don't really care. The driver's side, it's powered. And talking about the seats, one thing that I wish this car came with was the European seats. They were skinnier, that meant that you get better space in the back, and they were better at hugging you. These are too chunky, they're very North American. And I know people that actually purchased from UK and Germany the normal ones, the skinnier version, and then installed them in North America. I might do that down the road, I don't know yet. I've gotten used to these seats, but I'd say those ones will give you better space in the second row because they're skinnier at the top. These things are designed like a chunky. It feels like they took them off maybe Explorer ST. Not the biggest fan of these seats. I just think they could have done a better job. The next thing is that the interior of this car is not quite as premium as you'd expect it. But then remember, this came in 2016, so it was just another Ford Focus and completely re-engineered. But then the interior, they kind of forgot about it. It was kind of like a last minute. Oh yeah, let's just put these seats, put some carbon fiber pieces for the limited edition, and a different cluster, which, by the way, I'm a big fan of this cluster. I love the analog design, the needles, the blue, the red. Everything matches and exactly what I want it to be. And then you've got the centerpiece here for the infotainment, which is different to the Europeans. That's another thing that shocked me. The design over here is very, very different to them. And then you've got the actual analog gauges, which I'm a big fan of. Even with the carbon piece, I actually think that they look really good analog than digital. And there's something else that I like about is the Nissan Z that has similar to that kind of design. Analog, big fan of it. It just makes the car feel a bit special during this time that everything is just screens. It does have a sunroof, which, big fan. It has heated seats in the front, Apple CarPlay, backup camera. That's all I need. I don't need anything else. It's got a proper handbrake, which I'm a big fan, with carbon fiber. The shift knob, it's perfect. The transmission in this thing, the actual shifting is exactly what I wanted. That's That's one thing that I'm a big fan of this, that none of the other hatchbacks have. It's the shifter. The way this thing is designed, it's perfect. Now the pedals, some people complain about it. They say they're not close enough to do the toe and heel. I don't really care about that. It doesn't bother me as much. I I can see being a problem for some people. For me, it's actually the perfect position, maybe because I've got giant feet. It does have a sunglass compartment, which I'm a big fan because I use my prescription sunglasses. What I have done inside is add an actual steering wheel cover. This is suede with blue stitching and a strap at the top. It's just that I find the standard one is not as grippy. This is much nicer to handle, and I can remove this and replace it anytime I want. Audio system is powered by Sony. It does have enough features for me to use for day-to-day, for long trips. I don't need anything else. It doesn't have blind spot assist systems, but it does have the smaller version of it, of the side mirror, which actually comes in real handy. Heated mirrors for wintertime, which I don't think I'm going to drive it as much. Second row, you got enough space. The guy that owned this was kind enough to add rubber mats, which I'm a big fan of, and it's good to have for like wintertime. I've got my son's seat in the back. Another thing that I love about this car is how it drives in terms of performance. When it comes to the driving experience with the RS, you either hate it or love it. Let me explain. My wife and I drove the first Focus RS that I had from Toronto to Philadelphia. I have cousins down there, and she made me promise her not to ever take that car on a long trip. Now, mind you, she absolutely loves this car in sense for day-to-day, 50 kilometers max. But other than that, she does not like it. And the reason I say this is because the suspension system in this vehicle, it feels like it was designed specifically for track use, not day-to-day. I don't think the engineers even thought about that idea. They just went, okay, so we're going to design this around the track and call it a day. Forget about soft suspension system. We want to make this thing glued to the ground. And let me tell you, they did that, and they did that amazing, because out of all the other vehicles that I've driven, the Focus RS, in my opinion, is the only one that feels like a track weapon for its engine, for its size. I've driven the Golf R, nah, not even close. I've driven the Civic Type R, not even close. In fact, the Civic Type R feels very underpowered for the way it looks. Even the new one, I like it, but very underpowered compared to this. I've driven the Elantra N, really great machine, very well placed in terms of budget, and you can make a lot of it in terms of the tunes and all that. You can make tons of horsepower, and it does offer a DCT for people that know how to drive manual. It's not even close to the RS. I'm trying to think the other ones that are like maybe GTI, it's not even up for debate. The Corolla GR, I almost forgot that one, completely underpowered, doesn't sound good at all. The good thing that it's all-wheel drive, but that's about it. But this car will eat them alive, and I mean this whether it's track use or even drag racing. Maybe track use, the Civic Type R might have a bit of an advantage, but when it comes to drag use, like drag racing, this thing has a 5,000 RPM launch control. In fact, I'm gonna find a spot and I'm gonna show you exactly what I mean. This thing launches like no other car out there. It's like, it hooks, and it does a 5,000 RPM. Even the exhaust sound, I read somewhere that the engineers at Acura took a Focus RS to design the exhaust sound of the Integra Type S. And it makes sense because that thing sounds better than the Civic Type R. And that actually sounds closer to this. This is a 2.3 liter engine. That's a 2 liter engine. So sometimes at the 2 liter level, you really have to work hard to get a really good sound. Not make it sound like childish or a boy racer. You want to make it sound good. And this is my perfect spot for this car. Even the transmission in the Focus RS is superb for an all-wheel drive vehicle. Like, you might feel uncomfortable driving other vehicles, and there's a GT3 RS coming my way. There's an old guy with the GT3 RS driving like a granny. Give it a go, man. Like, I'm falling asleep here. Like, come on. That's not the type of car you drive like that. So I'm gonna try a launch control. I've got some space here. Here we go. Let's do it's a bit of a process. Settings, driver assist, launch control. Okay, LC is active. So into first gear, throttle all the way. Wow, like, that's it. This thing just goes, like, it's just unmatched. I absolutely love how this thing drives when it comes to around the track or if you want to go fast. And it feels like the power does not end in this car. It's just constantly sending more power to the wheels. And I think that's what makes the Focus RS even more special. It's that power output that most of the hatchbacks today are not even close. I mean, they're still providing like about 310, 315, but none of them have got to the 350 level. Of course, you can get a CLA 45 AMG, which is absolutely insane, but that's like twice the amount of money, unless you get like an old used one, and you don't get a manual transmission. So it's not going to be as fun. But this one, for the amount that you paid at that time, and till this day, none of the new vehicles compare. And that's why I bought it again, because I drove all of them and I was convinced this was it. This was it. And I'm happy that I did it, because I really don't want to sell this thing unless I have to.